My beloved, you've been waking up, carrying something unspoken, like a quiet ache behind your smile, a weariness that doesn't come from your body, but from your spirit. You've been walking into your days wondering if anything you carry is really making a difference. If anyone even sees it. I have. I've watched how you keep showing up, not just with strength, but with light. Even on days when you don't feel particularly radiant, you still make room for others. You still listen with warmth. You still reach for goodness even when you're surrounded by cynicism. You call it trying. I call it light. Not generic light. Not borrowed light. My light, placed in you with intention. There's something you need to hear clearly this morning, and I wanted to get past every wall disappointment tried to build in you. I placed light in you on purpose. It wasn't a side effect of your personality. It wasn't a temporary gift meant for a single season. It was me, breathing myself into you. I shaped you with the intention of radiance. I clothed you with fire, not the destructive kind, but the steady, holy kind. The kind that warms a room without burning it down. The kind that flickers in dark places as a signal that not everything is lost. But I know why you've been questioning it. Somewhere along the way, someone treated your light like a flaw. They were uncomfortable with your joy, so they called it naive. They didn't know what to do with your tenderness, so they called it weakness. They misunderstood your vision, so they said you were dreaming too big. And when the voices around you echoed these things, when the silence of others confirmed them, you started to dim. Just a little. Just enough not to be noticed. But I noticed. I noticed every time you second-guessed your instincts. I noticed the moments when you thought, maybe I should hold back this time. I noticed the shift in your posture, the way your shoulders began to carry weight I never gave you. And I grieved with you, not because your light was fading, but because you thought it had to. Listen to me now. Nothing in you that reflects me is accidental. Your discernment is not a burden, it's a signal. Your empathy is not a liability, it's a healing river. Your laughter in dry places, your eyes that notice the quiet ones, your urge to protect the tender-hearted. All of that is the manifestation of my presence in you. You didn't invent it. You're carrying it. And this world desperately needs it. When I formed you, I didn't ask the world what it preferred. I didn't shape your inner life based on what culture would find convenient. I placed heaven's light inside you because I knew darkness would come for the ones around you. And I knew they would need to see me through someone who didn't give up their glow. I chose you to be that someone. Not a savior, not a performer, a bearer, a vessel, a flame that reminds the atmosphere of my nearness. Do you remember when you used to feel full without explanation? When you didn't need a reason to feel wonder? When you simply noticed things others passed by? That wasn't childishness. That was closeness to me. And though life tried to train that out of you, I've never stopped drawing you back to that clarity. You didn't lose it. You just buried it under layers of survival. You've been surviving long enough. It's time to uncover what still burns. Let me tell you something about how I work. I never place light in someone just to watch them keep it hidden. I don't ignite lamps to store them in closets. I don't call people my own and then ask them to blend into every room they enter. You've been trying so hard to be manageable, to not inconvenience anyone, to not draw too much attention. But in doing so, you've silenced something sacred. You're not here to be manageable. You're here to be luminous. And no, I'm not asking you to exhaust yourself trying to be bright. That's not what light does. Light doesn't try, it simply is. Light doesn't prove, it reveals. You don't have to explain your heart to everyone who misunderstands it. You don't have to shrink to fit their comfort. You don't have to apologize for the fire I've placed in you. I will teach you how to carry it with wisdom. I will show you when to speak and when to be still. But never again should you confuse stillness with shame. Never again should you label your own light as too much. Even now, as you read this, something inside you is stirring. That stirring is not anxiety, it's remembrance. You're remembering who you really are. You're remembering mornings when you used to wake up excited, not just for the tasks ahead, but for the chance to be alive in me. That's still available to you. I am still the same, and I never withdrew the light I placed in you. You may not feel ready. That's fine. You don't need to feel ready to shine. You just need to be willing to stop hiding. My spirit will do the rest. I will renew your mind. I will fill your heart. I will soften what got calloused and strengthen what got weary. But I will not let you go back to pretending you are someone else. You are mine, and what I place, I protect. So rise now, not in haste, but in truth. Don't rush this morning. Let these words become your rhythm. Let my spirit be your breath. And as this day unfolds, I want you to walk like someone who carries something sacred. Because you do. You carry me. You carry the light that tells the weary, there is still goodness here. You carry the flame that reminds the forgotten, you are still seen. You carry the radiance that whispers to the hopeless, this isn't the end. And I will be with you in every moment, confirming the light I placed in you, not through applause or recognition, but through peace. You'll know you're aligned with me when you stop striving to be accepted and start resting in who I've already made you. This isn't the kind of light that burns out with time. This is the kind of light that deepens with surrender. You don't need to generate it. You only need to yield to it. Let the others question. Let them wonder. Let them whisper if they must. But you, beloved, you carry my glory, and I placed it in you on purpose. You've spent so long adjusting yourself to survive that you began to wonder if your light was ever real to begin with. Somewhere in the tension between expectation and exhaustion, a whisper began circling your mind. Maybe you're just pretending. Maybe the light in you is artificial. Maybe you're only good when others are watching. And I need to confront that lie, because it has no place in you. I never taught you to fake goodness. I never trained you to be a counterfeit version of hope. The light I placed in you didn't come from performance. It came from presence. You didn't manufacture it. You received it. And if it came from me, then it's incorruptible. The darkness around you has tried to convince you that your radiance is circumstantial, that it depends on how people treat you, or how good your day is going, or whether you're winning or losing. But it doesn't. Your light doesn't come from your circumstances. It comes from your connection. And here's what happens when my children start to believe the lie that their light is fragile or fake. They overcompensate. They start to force joy. They fear disappointment so much they cover themselves in layers of spiritual hustle. They volunteer when they're burning out. They give when they haven't received. They smile while their souls ache. And in time, they forget that real light doesn't come from striving. It comes from surrender. I see the toll it's taken on you. I see how hard you've tried to stay positive, to be strong, to keep showing up. But beloved, I never called you to be strong in your own strength. I called you to be filled. You're not a machine. You are a lamp. And a lamp cannot burn unless it stays connected to the source. Your burnout isn't a failure. It's a signal. It's your soul trying to tell you what I've been whispering gently for a while. Now, you need more of me, not more of the world's applause. Let me correct something you may have misunderstood. The world's rejection of your light was never an accurate measurement of its worth. Some people pushed you away not because you were wrong, but because they weren't ready to see what you revealed in them. Some walked away not because you failed, but because you carried a truth they didn't want to face. And I know that hurt. I know it made you wonder, if being full of me was worth the loneliness that sometimes followed. But the truth is, the more you reflect me, the more you'll become unfamiliar to those who only live by shadows. You were not created to be understood by everyone. You were created to reveal me, and my son was misunderstood too. He was light in the middle of blindness. He was warmth in a world that had grown cold with religion. And just like him, when you walk into a room and carry the unseen into the scene, some hearts will open and others will hide. That's not your burden to fix. That's mine. I want to teach you the difference between humility and hiding, between gentleness and silence, between wisdom and self-erasure. Some of the most damaging lies wear spiritual clothing. The enemy has tried to convince you that playing small is holy, that not shining too brightly is mature, that if you really loved me, you would avoid attention. But child, do you see how backwards that is? Do you see how the one who fears my light has been trying to shame you for carrying it? You don't have to apologize for being luminous. You don't have to over-explain the joy you feel in my presence. You don't need to filter your hunger for righteousness just because it makes someone else uncomfortable. I didn't create you to blend in. I called you to be a city on a hill, not a candle under a bowl. And I said that for a reason. When you try to disappear, the enemy applauds. But when you rise with quiet confidence, knowing who you are in me, hell trembles. Because you remind the world that light wins. Let's get even more honest now. There have been moments, recent ones, when you caught yourself toning down your passion so you wouldn't seem too spiritual. You've walked into rooms where sarcasm was the language, and you tucked your reverence away because you didn't want to be mocked. You've been around people who wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, and so you hid the peace I gave you because it made them suspicious. But I didn't fill you with peace so you could feel ashamed of it. I gave you peace so you could carry it into places that have forgotten what it looks like. You weren't being fake. You were being faithful. And now I'm calling you to be free. Free from the expectations you've internalized. Free from the old roles you played to survive. Free from the need to explain why your soul glows differently. That light in you, it was born from encounter. It grew through pruning. It remained through wilderness. And now it's ready to be trusted. This doesn't mean every room will celebrate you, but it does mean every step you take in your true identity carries authority. Not everyone will validate your glow, but heaven already has. You don't need earthly permission to reflect me. You only need my presence, and I have never left you. So today, take one risk. Stop pretending not to burn. Let yourself speak with conviction. Let yourself worship without restraint. Let yourself be someone whose peace isn't performance, whose hope isn't hidden, whose joy doesn't have to wait until things make sense. This is the real thing. This is what I placed in you from the beginning, and no amount of rejection, disappointment, or delay has removed it. You were never just surviving. You were shining under pressure. You were carrying something eternal while walking through the temporary. And now, I am breathing fresh air into your soul, not to relight what was lost, but to fan into flame what was never extinguished. You are still radiant. You are still mine. And I'm still not finished. I know what they don't. I know what you carry beneath the surface, what you've tried to forget or deny because it didn't fit the image others expected. You've built resilience. You've learned how to move forward while hiding the places that never fully healed. You've adapted well, haven't you? But even the most functional survival mechanisms can keep you from the deeper healing I've been trying to bring. You thought the light in you had to be earned by pretending your past didn't touch you. But I never asked you to pretend. I asked you to let me reveal the truth. There's a reason you hesitate to shine. A reason you instinctively lower your eyes when someone compliments your joy or your influence. A reason you quietly deflect moments when others are impacted by your presence. You've made peace with being useful, but not with being radiant. And that's because somewhere along the way, you came to believe a dangerous message. That your light was conditional. That it would be taken if you failed. That it would only remain if you stayed strong, agreeable, easy to love. That belief didn't come from me. I remember when that belief first slipped into your heart. You were still young, not just in years, but in soul. You trusted easily, loved freely, hoped without boundaries. But someone you admired, someone who held weight in your heart, either dismissed your innocence or punished your openness. Maybe it was with silence. Maybe it was with sarcasm. Maybe it was with rejection cloaked in spiritual language. Whatever form it took, I know it left an imprint. You began to associate light with danger. To shine meant to be targeted. To be seen meant to be unsafe. So you learned to minimize the glow, not out of rebellion, but out of protection. But child, can you see it now? That pain didn't kill the light, it just buried it, and today I'm ready to uncover it, not to expose you, but to restore you. You've been carrying guilt for being gifted. You've internalized shame for being able to see beauty, for knowing how to bring others comfort, for having a voice that others naturally lean toward. Instead of celebrating the light in you, you've wondered if it makes you arrogant. But here's what I want you to hear clearly. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself. Humility is agreeing with me. And when I call you radiant, holy, beloved, full of light, you dishonor me when you call yourself anything less. I've seen the way your past experiences try to rewrite your identity in the present, how fear creeps in right before you speak something holy, how shame taps on your shoulder after you take a risk for me, how the memories whisper, don't get too bold, don't get too visible. But I did not rescue you from the pit just to watch you hide behind politeness. I pulled you from darkness so that my glory could be seen in you without apology. You weren't born to echo the world's caution. You were born to echo heaven's courage. There is no fear in my love, not for you and not for the light you carry, but fear has been your silent companion. Not the loud kind that panics, but the subtle kind that keeps you constantly measuring. Is this too much? Is this safe? Will they still want me if I say this? Will they leave if I shine too brightly? These questions weren't born in freedom. They were born in trauma. And though your heart has tried to heal on its own, there's a deeper level of restoration that only I can bring. I want to take you back, not to re-injure you, but to reinterpret what happened. You thought the rejection meant you were wrong. You thought the silence meant I had withdrawn, but I was there. When you were mocked for your sincerity, I was defending your heart in the spirit realm. When you were overlooked while others were celebrated, I was marking you for something greater. When you were told to quiet down, to be less emotional, to fit in, I was writing a different script over you, one with fire, one with presence, one that now, finally, you are beginning to remember. You're not here by accident. The light you carry is not a fluke or a leftover blessing someone else dropped. It is precise. It is strategic. It was chosen for this time, for this generation, for this exact place in history. The enemy knew this. That's why he came after your confidence so early. That's why he's tried so hard to tie your light to your wounds, to convince you that the two cannot be separated. But I'm here now, gently but with authority, to sever that false agreement. Your light doesn't come from what you've overcome. It comes from who I am in you. Yes, your pain has shaped your compassion. Yes, your battles have refined your wisdom. But the core of your light is not your story. It's my spirit. I place myself in you, my breath, my radiance, my nature, my peace, my flame, That's why it keeps rising even when you try to quiet it. That's why it unsettles you to be invisible. Because your very DNA in me was crafted to reflect what cannot be hidden. Let me say it as plainly as I can. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to tiptoe through life, hoping not to offend. You were never meant to carry your calling like a fragile thing that could break at any moment. I've reinforced you from within. I've made your spirit resilient, not through pressure, but through my presence. And now the time of hiding is ending. I'm not pushing you into performance. I'm inviting you into fullness, not a public display, but a private alignment. When you align with my truth about you, the light flows naturally. You don't need to stir it up. You don't need to rehearse it. You just need to rest in it, to live from it, to let it reach the places that your fear once guarded. I'm restoring your confidence today, not in your ability, but in my presence within you. And as that confidence returns, you'll notice something strange and holy. The very places where you were once attacked will become the places you shine brightest. Because that's how I redeem. You've already begun returning to yourself, even if you haven't realized it yet. There have been flickers, brief, sacred moments, where your soul took a breath deeper than usual, where your words came out softer but stronger, where your thoughts weren't soaked in fear but in clarity. You may have overlooked these as coincidences, but I didn't. They were signs of light re-emerging, not as something new, but as something uncovered. Do you remember how just days ago you responded differently to the same situation that used to crush you? That wasn't random maturity, that was my spirit rising in you. Do you remember the way you slowed down and asked me before reacting? The way you said no, even though you used to always say yes out of guilt? That was light reclaiming space inside your life. The flame is not gone. It's just been learning how to breathe again, without fear of being extinguished. You're walking through a turning point that doesn't require shouting or fanfare. It's not a loud breakthrough. It's a quiet reclamation. And in my kingdom, quiet doesn't mean weak. It means rooted. What I'm rebuilding in you isn't flimsy. I'm not patching holes. I'm laying foundations. Deeper than emotion, stronger than affirmation. The light in you is starting to live from truth, not from how others treat you. And that's the beginning of spiritual authority. You've already begun to notice what no longer feels like home. The environments that once made you feel small now feel foreign. The conversations you once tolerated now leave a holy ache inside you. You don't laugh at certain things anymore, not because you're uptight, but because your spirit is outgrowing what used to numb it. You don't shrink yourself to be accepted. That's not pride. It's maturity. It's the spirit refining your inner atmosphere. It's me teaching you how to stay lit without burning out. Even your body has been responding. The fatigue you felt hasn't always been physical. It's been spiritual resistance. Not because you're failing, but because you're changing. The old way of living, hustling to be loved, proving your value, hiding your depth, was exhausting. But the way of light is different. You are learning to walk in peace, not pressure. That's why your rhythms are shifting. That's why you crave quiet more than noise. That's why you've started saying, I can't do it like that anymore. These are not signs of quitting. They're signs of transformation. Let me say this clearly. You are not regressing, you are recalibrating. I've been restoring your filters. The things you once ignored, now you notice. The lies that used to sound like truth, now they grate against your spirit. The habits you once clung to for comfort, now they feel like chains. That's not failure. That's discernment. That's light doing what it always does, revealing what no longer fits the atmosphere of freedom. And it's not just about what's being removed, it's about what's being planted. You've started to dream again, haven't you? Even if you're afraid to say it out loud, even if the dream is still blurry, fragile, inconsistent. That dream wasn't your imagination. It was me, whispering to your spirit that hope is safe again, that it's okay to long for more, that it's not foolish to desire a life that feels aligned with your soul. You've pushed down that longing for so long because the world taught you that safety is found in realism. But I didn't design you to be merely realistic. I designed you to be prophetic. You're not here to echo statistics. You're here to declare restoration. And yes, I know how vulnerable that makes you feel. I know what it costs to open your heart again after being disappointed. But healing doesn't come without risk. And every time you allow yourself to hope again, even in small ways, you're participating in my redemption. Every time you choose gentleness over cynicism, creativity over passivity, presence over performance, you're letting my light reshape your inner world. This is what newness looks like. You may not see the full picture yet, but I do. I see how your yes in secret is already shifting atmospheres around you. You think you're still in process, and you are, but heaven is already calling you faithful. Not perfect, not finished, faithful. Because you kept the flame alive when no one saw it. You chose me in the quiet. You trusted me when the evidence was thin. And that matters more than you know. This is not a season of self-improvement. This is a season of spirit-empowered clarity. I'm not asking you to fix yourself. I'm inviting you to become who you already are in me. The light was never gone. The oil was never dry. You're simply learning how to live from abundance, not anxiety. From me, not from pressure. From presence, not from performance. So notice the small things today. The subtle peace you feel when you pause to breathe. The nudge of courage that comes when you're about to hide, but choose to speak. The joy that bubbles up when you stop trying to be impressive and just be present. These are holy signs, sacred shifts. They mean you're on the right path, even if your feelings haven't caught up yet. I'm not rushing you, I'm walking with you. And if you keep following this light, it will lead you somewhere more beautiful than anything fear ever promised you. Let's talk about how you carry this light now. Not just in your spirit, but in your body, your rhythms, your choices. I know you've been trying to hold it all together, managing emotions, relationships, expectations, even while quietly navigating your own internal transitions. But I never meant for you to carry this light through striving. I meant for you to carry it through rhythm, through sacred pace, through alignment, not exhaustion. Start here, slow your breath. I gave you breath as a reminder that you are not your momentum. You are not the speed of your productivity. You are not the size of your output. You are my beloved, lit from within, designed to live from connection, not competition. When your body rushes ahead of your spirit, anxiety multiplies. But when you slow down to breathe with me, light fills the cracks again. Don't underestimate this. A breath aligned with my spirit carries more power than a day filled with frantic effort. And then, look at how you treat your energy. There's something sacred about honoring your limits, not out of fear or laziness, but out of wisdom. You've worn yourself thin, trying to be available for everyone, everywhere, all the time. And I see how that has eroded your joy. But hear me, your limitations are not flaws. They are signposts. They tell you where I intend to flow and where I never called you to go. When you ignore those signs, your light flickers. Not because you're broken, but because you're misaligned. So let me teach you something holy. Your gentleness is your new strength. You don't need to match the volume of the world to make an impact. Your voice, when rooted in me, carries authority that doesn't shout. When your peace is genuine, not manufactured, it disrupts atmospheres without striving. You don't need to constantly explain or justify yourself. There's a kind of spiritual elegance in moving with quiet clarity. That is power. and that power flows from rest, not performance. I want you to begin paying attention to where your light is received and where it is resisted, not to judge or retaliate, but to discern where I'm asking you to invest. Just because you can enter a space doesn't mean you're called to illuminate it endlessly. Even my son didn't stay in every village. He moved by instruction, not demand. He healed where hearts were open. He spoke where hunger made room for truth. You are not less loving when you set boundaries. You're more obedient. And let's talk about time. You've let urgency dictate your choices for too long. I'm calling you to shift from urgency to intentionality. Not everything is immediate. Not everything needs a response right now. Light doesn't panic. It reveals. And revelation comes in stillness. So protect your mornings, guard your evenings. Let me interrupt your distractions. Let me reorder your schedule from the inside out. You don't need to be busier to be effective. You just need to be aligned. I also want you to stop apologizing for needing space. You're not selfish for needing solitude. You're not antisocial for craving silence. These aren't weaknesses. They're part of how I've designed you to refuel. Every time you pause, every time you step away from noise and tune into my presence, you are tending to the flame within you. It's not neglect, it's stewardship. And when you practice this, you'll find that your influence multiplies, not diminishes. People don't need your constant presence. They need your genuine presence. And that presence only comes from overflow. Let me say this to your heart clearly. You are allowed to be full. You don't need to wait for a crisis to rest. You don't need to wait until you're on the edge to say, I need a moment. I am not glorified when you run yourself into the ground. I am glorified when your life becomes a reflection of my pace, my peace, and my power. That is where your light burns brightest, not in frantic effort, but in steady presence. Begin to notice how your body speaks back to you. The tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest, the fog behind your eyes. These are not inconveniences. They are signals. They're invitations to come back into rhythm with me. You don't need to push past them. You need to listen. I speak through peace, not pressure. And I heal through rhythm, not rush. Even your relationships are shifting to reflect this light. I'm removing the ones that feed on your effort, but ignore your essence. And I'm drawing toward you those who won't be threatened by your strength, those who will celebrate your purity, those who carry light of their own. This is a sacred exchange, light recognizing light. And when you begin to walk with those who reflect me back to you, your flame won't just survive, it will grow. Let me be your rhythm today, not just in the big moments, but in the hidden ones, when you decide what to say, when you choose when to respond, when you feel your heart tighten or soften. In all of it, I'm here, guiding, slowing, deepening. You're not being lazy when you rest. You're being wise. And the more you rest in me, the more my light becomes undeniable in you. This isn't about self-protection. It's about sacred design. I created you to glow in stillness. I made you to burn without burnout. And the more you honor that rhythm, the more the people around you will feel me in your presence, even when you say nothing at all. You've been wearing names I never gave you, titles assigned in seasons of survival, roles you stepped into because the world didn't know what to do with your softness, your boldness, your questions, your quiet discernment. Somewhere along the path, you started believing that who you are must be proven, adjusted, or diluted depending on the room. And in doing so, you began to layer yourself in masks. I watched it happen, not with anger, but with deep sorrow, because I saw how you tried to make yourself palatable for people who didn't have the language for your light. You were the strong one, because no one stopped to ask how tired you were. The peacemaker, because conflict always found you, and you didn't want to make it worse. The reliable one, because if you failed, no one else would step up. The quiet one, not because you lacked voice, but because your insight intimidated people more than noise ever did. But child, these are not your names. These are survival identities, and while they may have protected you for a time, they are too small for the light I've placed in you. I'm not calling you to reject your strength, your empathy, your sensitivity, or your responsibility. I'm calling you to carry them from identity, not for it. You are not the strong one because you have no needs. You are strong because I strengthen you daily. You are not the peacemaker because you avoid pain. You are a carrier of my peace, and true peace often confronts before it calms. You are not just the quiet one. You are a thunder wrapped in stillness. Your words don't come often, but when they do, they carry weight. That's not passive. That's prophetic. Let me name you again, beloved, vessel, flame bearer. You are not the result of other people's projections. You are the result of my breath. Let's go even deeper. You are not what drained you. You are not what disappointed you. You are not what people couldn't receive. Some rejected you not because of your weakness, but because your light made them see things they weren't ready to confront. But their blindness does not invalidate your radiance. The misinterpretations of others are not the definition of your essence. Your light has always been inconvenient to the enemy and to those who've partnered with fear, but it has never been a mistake. Even when you questioned, why do I feel everything so deeply? Why do I see what others miss? Why do I sense when something is off before anyone else says it? Those questions weren't signs of dysfunction. They were signs of design. I gave you spiritual sensitivity, not to burden you, but to prepare you. Your discernment is not a flaw. It's part of your assignment. Your tenderness isn't weakness. It's an anointing. Your hunger for truth. Your intolerance for false peace. Your tears when others are numb. Those are all parts of my light in you. This is not something you grew into. It was placed in you from the beginning. And now I'm stripping off the names, the masks, the labels that never belonged to you, not because you failed while wearing them, but because they cannot go with you into the next season. They are too small, too heavy, too rooted in survival. I am not a god of masks, I am a god of unveiling. I remove what was false, not to expose you, but to reveal you. Let me remind you what light does. It reveals. And now, I'm letting you see yourself clearly again. Not the version of you formed by fear, not the version formed by religious pressure, but the version I spoke over you before you were even in your mother's womb. The one I formed with intention, with radiance, with joy. This version of you is not someone you have to strive to become. You already are her. You already carry this light. You already possess this identity. You've just been trying to live it through layers. But layers cannot protect and reveal at the same time. It's time to stop protecting yourself from being misunderstood. That's not your job. It never was. I will handle the misinterpretation. You focus on remaining in me. When you stop performing for love, your light shines unfiltered. When you stop adjusting to stay welcome, your voice returns with clarity. When you stop measuring yourself by who celebrates or criticizes you, you start living from wholeness, not from hustle. And I know what the enemy will try next. He will try to use your past against you. He'll whisper, "But remember when you failed? Remember when you hurt someone? Remember when you doubted?" He'll try to drag your light onto the courtroom of regret. But child, I already covered all of it. What you've repented for, I've already removed. I don't consult your past to define your future. Neither should you. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment to live unveiled. You don't need to earn one more person's trust or gain one more ounce of clarity before you start. All you need to do is agree with me. Say yes to the light I placed in you. Trust it. Walk in it. Let it speak through your tone, your choices, your presence. Not perfectly, just honestly, just freely. And if someone doesn't understand you after that, let them walk. You're not being arrogant by refusing to dim yourself. You're being faithful. Today, begin to release the false identities you've been carrying. You are not the fixer. You are not the emotional sponge. You are not the always available one. You are mine. You carry my light. And you are allowed to live as though that is enough. Because it is. Now that you've remembered who you are, let me show you how to live like it. Not with performance, not with pressure, with presence. This light I placed in you wasn't just meant to make you feel warm. It was meant to guide your path. And I want to show you how to walk in it with intention, with clarity, with rhythms that honor what I've deposited in you. Because if light is not stewarded, it becomes exhausting. And that's not what I want for you. First, stop feeding what dims you. I know that sounds strong, but I say it with love. You know which conversations drain your spirit, which routines leave your soul dull, which spaces make you feel like you have to edit yourself to be accepted. I'm not asking you to be judgmental. I'm asking you to be aware. There's a difference between loving people and letting yourself be drained by them. Some places you're visiting, I never sent you to stay in. And I'm giving you permission now to step away. Not because you're abandoning people, but because you're finally honoring what I placed inside of you. Second, start prioritizing spaces that feed your light. Not entertain it, not exploit it, but feed it. When was the last time you sat in silence without reaching for your phone? When did you last let my voice be the only one in the room? This is how the flame stays steady, not in public performance, but in private intimacy. I meet you in stillness. I clarify your mind when you remove the clutter. You think you need more answers, but what you need is more attention on me. I am not hiding. I'm simply speaking at a volume that requires stillness to hear. Start treating your spirit like sacred ground, not as an afterthought at the end of a long day, but as the center from which everything flows. If your spirit is dimmed, your discernment becomes clouded. Your peace gets tangled. Your time starts to feel like a chase instead of a rhythm. But when your spirit is well fed, through my word, through worship, through real, honest conversation with me, everything else begins to realign. It's not magic, it's design. And while we're here, let me speak to your habits. Not out of shame, but alignment. What you do with your mornings matters. What you do with your attention matters. I know it's easier to scroll than to sit in silence. I know it's tempting to overbook your schedule so you don't have to feel what's aching under the surface. But I'm not afraid of your silence, and I'm not exhausted by your ache. Let me meet you in those places. Set aside the noise, not forever, just for long enough to remember what it feels like to hear your own soul. Because underneath the busyness, you are still here, and so am I. This is where your light becomes sustainable, when you no longer use people's reactions to determine your peace, when you no longer use your performance to measure your value, when you stop using exhaustion as a way to feel useful. I am not calling you to a life that looks powerful on the outside but leaves you empty within. I am calling you to a life that overflows from the inside, naturally, joyfully, consistently. That kind of life requires boundaries, not walls, not isolation. Boundaries, holy lines that protect what I planted. Let's talk about those moments when the light feels dim. Not because you're failing, but because you're overwhelmed. I want to give you new tools for those moments, not just quick fixes, but sacred patterns. When you feel that flicker fading, step back. Don't force yourself to produce or inspire. Return to the source. Return to me. Worship, not as performance, but as oxygen. Let tears come. Let silence stretch. Let your soul breathe. The light was never meant to be maintained by your own effort. It was always meant to be sustained by my Spirit. Some of your greatest breakthroughs will not happen in crowded rooms. They'll happen in the stillness of your car, in the quiet before sunrise, in the hush that follows surrender. Do not despise the small moments. The holy often begins hidden. That gentle prompting you feel when you're tempted to keep going, but your body says, pause, listen to it. That's me. That's the light preserving you. And when it comes to relationships, remember this: you are not required to stay in agreements that suffocate your light. I did not call you to loyalty that costs your spirit. I called you to love, yes, but not at the expense of the flame I've given you. If someone constantly requires you to dim in order to stay close, that's not connection, it's compromise. And I am calling you out of it, not in bitterness, in clarity. This path of light will sometimes feel lonely, but it will never be without me. I will place people around you who burn with the same flame. You'll know them not by what they say, but by how your spirit feels when you're near them. No competition, no draining, no masks, just light calling to light. You don't need many, just a few, and I'm already bringing them near. Let these be your rhythms now. Protect what fuels you, release what drains you, rest when you're weary, return to me when you're lost. Do these, and your light will not just remain, it will grow. You're entering a season where your light will begin to draw attention, not because you're seeking it, but because you're aligned. And alignment always attracts response. Some will be drawn to you because they sense me before they even know what it is. Others will feel unsettled around you, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence awakens what they've buried. Do not be alarmed by either. Light always provokes movement, and now yours will. You've been hidden for a time, not as punishment, but as protection. I was shaping you where no one else could name you incorrectly. I was deepening your roots so the fruit would last. But the hiding is lifting, not into spotlight, but into visibility. And visibility for those who carry my light is not performance. It's responsibility. You will not need to announce yourself. The glow of your spirit will do what no introduction ever could. Because when I reveal someone, it's not for show. It's for purpose. I'm sending you into places that once triggered your silence. But now you will speak, not loudly, not in reaction, but with clarity, with peace, with the weight of heaven in your tone. People will wonder what changed. And you won't need to explain, because transformation doesn't always make sense to those who haven't seen the fire you've walked through. Let your consistency speak louder than your defense. You will begin to notice favor resting on you again, not as a reward, but as confirmation. The ideas that seemed delayed will suddenly be received. The invitations you thought passed you by will return, this time with more substance, more safety. That's not coincidence. That's the timing of heaven catching up with your surrender. What felt like years of standing still was actually me moving you into precision. And now, the fruit will start to show. Doors that were closed will begin to open. But here's the difference. This time, you won't walk through all of them, because you've learned the difference between access and assignment. You no longer crave every opportunity, you crave alignment. And that shift is why your light now has weight. It's not just a feeling anymore. It's a discerned fire, guided by wisdom, carried by someone who knows who they are. I'm also re-establishing your voice in places where it was once silenced. In families, where you were misunderstood. In friendships, where you were expected to be the safe one, while others lived freely. In ministry spaces, where your depth was minimized in favor of conformity. You will no longer have to prove your worth through silence or sweetness. Your light will stand. It will be felt. It will change the atmosphere. And it won't come from force. It will come from authority. You don't have to fear being seen anymore. You're no longer the person who had to pretend they were fine. You are no longer the one who survived off fragments of peace while carrying others on your back. You've been rebuilt from the inside. What you now carry is durable. What you now carry is transferable. When people enter your presence, they will begin to feel hunger rise, not for you, but for me. That's what happens when someone walks in true identity. Their light doesn't just inspire, it activates. Let me speak this over you with clarity. My favor is moving toward you, not the kind that inflates the ego, but the kind that expands your impact. You've already been faithful with the unseen parts. Now I will entrust you with more, but not heavier. Just more precise. You will begin to see how even your presence in a room shifts things. People will stop mid-sentence and say, "I don't know why, but something feels different when you're here." That's the light doing what it was always meant to do: reveal, reset, restore. But remember this: favor is not your identity. Assignment is not your worth. You are not valuable because you are effective. You are valuable because you are mine. The moment you start tying your light to your output, you will feel the weight return. Keep your heart light by keeping your identity rooted in me. You are not the flame. You are the lamp. I am the fire. And don't be surprised when the enemy tries to revisit old doors: discouragement, insecurity, comparison. He will whisper, "Are you sure you're ready for this? What if you mess it up? What if they still reject you?" But you'll recognize that voice now. You'll feel it for what it is: static, muffled distortion trying to disrupt clarity. You won't need to argue with it. You'll just keep walking, because this light in you has been tested, refined, and now it leads. This is the season where your outside begins to reflect what's been happening inside. And while the world might say, "Where have you been?" you'll know the answer: with me, in the quiet, in the refining, in the revealing. And now, every step you take forward carries the echo of heaven's voice. This one is mine. This one carries light. This one is ready. Let me remind you, the light in you is not your burden to carry. It is my presence dwelling within you. You are not the generator. You are the lamp. And no lamp sustains itself. It draws its glow from the oil. You were never meant to shine from effort. You were meant to shine from union. That's why I gave you my spirit, not just as a backup, but as breath. You've used the spirit like a rescue line in crisis, and I honored those moments. But now, I'm teaching you how to live from constant connection, not emergency reach. The spirit isn't your last resort. It's your first rhythm. When you let me breathe through you, you don't just survive the day. You begin to carry a presence that saturates it. Let's simplify everything right now. No matter what's ahead of you today, no matter who notices or doesn't, no matter what you accomplish or leave undone, if you begin and end in me, you are fully aligned. Let that be your safety. Let that be your rhythm. Not performance, not overthinking. Just breathe. Just me. Just awareness of my nearness as your source. I've never asked you to be impressive. I've asked you to be intimate. Your light doesn't shine because you always know what to say. It shines because you remain with me. You could whisper 3 words, and they would carry heaven if they're born in intimacy. You could walk into a room and say nothing. But if your spirit is in step with mine, even your silence becomes a testimony. That's what happens when the spirit becomes more than a supplement, when it becomes breath. Let me show you how this plays out in real time. When you walk into spaces that feel heavy, you won't need to armor up. You'll breathe. You'll sense. You'll wait. You'll listen. You'll ask, "Holy Spirit, how are you moving here?" And I'll answer, sometimes with words, sometimes with direction, sometimes with peace that bypasses logic. You'll feel it like an invisible hand on your shoulder. Here, Now speak. Or, wait. Just be. You'll move in flow, not in fear. That's light born of trust. This is how light becomes more than theology. This is how it becomes lived. Because what you carry isn't a metaphor, it's a person. It's me. Living inside you, speaking, shaping, healing, convicting, not just to make you feel spiritual, but to make you whole. The world will continue to pull at you, to demand your reaction, to provoke your old fears, but I'm training you to respond from presence, not pressure, from revelation, not reflex. That moment when someone's tone stings and you pause instead of retaliate, that's my spirit governing you. That quiet strength that rises when you'd normally collapse, that's me again. That deep knowing in your gut when something seems wrong, even if no one else sees it. Yes, that's me too. You're not imagining this, you're maturing. Your light is not dependent on your mood. It's not based on how productive you are. It's not diminished by days when your energy is low or your questions are high. You're not a flickering flame. You are a steady fire, because the source is eternal. The Spirit doesn't abandon you on your weak days. In fact, those are the days you shine most authentically, because it becomes obvious that it's not you holding it all together. It's me. Let this change the way you approach your day. Start with breath. Invite me into the smallest tasks. Ask me questions you used to think were too trivial. Should I take this call now? Is it time to respond to that message? How do you see this situation? Don't wait for crisis to engage with me. I delight in walking with you minute by minute. I'm not just the voice of deliverance. I'm the voice of daily wisdom. And when you feel the familiar pull to do it all alone, to impress, to anticipate needs, to pour out more than I've poured in, pause, return, even for 30 seconds. Whisper, my name. Remember, you don't have to relight yourself. You just have to reconnect. You'll begin to notice that what used to drain you now passes over you. What used to trigger you no longer pulls you under. That's the work of the Spirit in real time, not just in theory, but in temperament. I'm rewiring how you live, and as this light becomes your rhythm, you'll begin to sense me not just in church or in worship sets, but in the middle of ordinary life, in grocery stores, in traffic, in mundane conversations, in the middle of a breath. That is where we meet now, because you are no longer walking as someone reaching for me. You are walking as someone carrying me. And yes, this is the version of you the world needs. Not the most confident, not the most polished, but the most connected. Because connected hearts burn consistently, and consistent light is what heals long-term darkness. So don't complicate this. Don't wait for a feeling. Don't wait for a stage. Just start walking in step. Start with breath, with stillness, with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are mine. I am in you. And this light is not leaving it. Look at you now, not just surviving, not just functioning, but carrying light, on purpose, with purpose. You're no longer just wondering whether it was real. You've remembered, you've reclaimed, and now you're beginning to walk like someone who knows. My light is in me and it's not leaving. I never needed you to be flawless. I never expected you to be fearless. I simply waited for you to say yes again, not to the role, not to the responsibility, but to your identity. And now you have. You said yes when you chose rest instead of pressure. You said yes when you pulled back to breathe. You said yes when you let go of what drained you. And every yes is fire. Every yes is light. Every yes is alignment. You've come through seasons that should have snuffed out your glow, but they didn't. And do you know why? Because I was in you. Because I never let the flame die, even when you doubted, even when you shut down, even when you performed just to stay visible. I was still here, still burning, still waiting for you to realize. Nothing could separate you from what I placed inside you. You thought you were flickering, but I saw embers. And embers, when tended, become wildfire. So hear me clearly now that your heart is soft enough to receive it. You were born to carry my glory. You were never meant to shrink to survive. You were meant to expand in me. Your joy is holy. Your discernment is sharp. Your kindness is warfare. Your words are keys. Your silence is not emptiness. It's atmosphere setting. Everything about you, when yielded to me, becomes a conduit for heaven on earth. And this is only the beginning. You're going to wake up differently now, not dreading the day, but sensing purpose in the hours ahead. You'll feel the shift before others notice it. You'll walk into old places with new posture, and even if nothing around you changes immediately, you will have changed. And because of that, everything must eventually respond. I've restored your light, not just for your sake, but for those who are still where you were, the ones who think they've lost their worth, the ones who believe their radiance was stolen, the ones who wear masks they no longer recognize. You won't have to preach. Your life will be the message. Your freedom will be the mirror. And in your presence, they'll remember what it feels like to hope again. You're not behind. You're right on time. I see the roads ahead of you, some smooth, some uncertain, but I go before you, and I go within you. You will not face anything alone. You carry the kind of light that doesn't depend on external fuel. It's sustained from the inside. From me, from intimacy, from trust. And when the days feel dim again, and they might, you won't panic. You'll pause, you'll breathe. You'll remember, this light was placed here on purpose, and it will not go out. So go now, not in fear, but in fullness. Let your steps be slow and unshaken. Let your presence do what it was created to do. Calm storms, expose lies, awaken wonder, invite joy, confront darkness gently. Let the room shift when you enter, not because of charisma, but because of consistency. Let the people around you feel safer, more seen, more whole. Because that's what happens when someone lives unveiled. You are not who they said you were. You are not who shame tried to convince you to be. You are mine. You are radiant. And the light in you is holy, amen. If these words reignited something you thought had gone out, mark them. Someone else is waiting to be reminded too. Share this, not for attention, but because light was never meant to be kept. You were lit to awaken others.